Hey everyone, this is Chris. Welcome back to the channel. So we're talking about Taylor Swift, Ticketmaster, and whether or not it's a monopoly. This is actually a really interesting question. And if you've been trying to buy tickets or trying to buy tickets for someone that you love, I'm sure you know it's been a whole fiasco and just a horrible situation. So let's start with this. We'll talk about it. First, I want to go over the definition of monopoly because I think this really matters. So what is a monopoly? We'll take a look at this. A monopoly is a market structure where a single seller or producer assumes a dominant position in an industry or sector. Monopolies are discouraged. I like that language, discouraged. I mean, it doesn't mean they don't exist, but it's it's discouraged, right? In a free market economies as they stifle competition and limit substitutes for customers, right? Or consumers, I should say. In the United States, antitrust legislation is in place to restrict monopolies, ensuring that one business cannot control a market and use that control to exploit its customers. And it's interesting when I think about just looking at the definition, right? I'll ask yourself this question. Do you think Ticketmaster owns the market on, say, concert tickets or events? And do you think they exploit customers? I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments. And I want to go through the Taylor Swift example because it's a lot of stuff that I wasn't even thinking about. One thing I do think about all the time, and just full disclosure, I hate Ticketmaster. They've had, like, basically, in my opinion, a monopoly for quite a long time. And when you go through all these things, it's like, yeah, it's pretty bad. So anyway, here. Taylor Swift calls Ticketmaster woes excruciating. It's a quote in a statement. And then we're actually going to read the statement that she wrote. And the basic gist of it was that all these people tried to buy the tickets and they ended up shutting the whole thing down because there's just too much demand. But whether or not demand is from real people or bots, that's the question, right? But let's see what Taylor Swift's statement is about regarding the ticket situation. Well, it goes without saying that I'm extremely protective of my fans. We've been doing this for decades together, and over the years, I've brought so many elements of my career in-house. I've done this specifically to improve the quality of my fans' experience by doing it myself with my team who care as much about my fans as I do. It's really difficult for me to trust an outside entity with these relationships and loyalties, and excruciating for me to watch mistakes happen with no recourse. And again, we're kind of referring to, how do you sell tickets to your fans, et cetera, and do you do it in-house, like do you do it yourself, or do you rely on a third party? This is sort of what we're getting at here. We'll continue what Taylor Swift has to say. There are multiple reasons why people had such a hard time trying to get tickets, and I'm trying to figure out the situation can be improved moving forward. I'm not going to make excuses for anyone because we asked them multiple times if they could handle this kind of demand, and we were assured they could. It's truly amazing that 2.4 million people got tickets, but it really pisses me off that a lot of them feel like they went through several bear attacks to get them. And to those who didn't get tickets, all I can say is that my hope is to provide more opportunities for us to get all together and sing these songs. Thank you for wanting to be there. You have no idea how much this means. So, and I know a lot of people are fans of, it's not just Taylor Swift, any number of artists. And the way our sort of system is where, you have Ticketmaster and then there's a lot of essentially ticket brokers come in and buy up tickets and then resell them to you guys. And the whole market for this kind of thing is been really, really tough to crack, especially if just a regular person, just want to say, go to the stadium and buy tickets. That doesn't really exist anymore. And for young people, you've probably never known a world where, before Ticketmaster. And I think the big thing with Ticketmaster too is also the fees, which I'm sure you guys know, they just make so much money. One thing that is interesting with the bot situation is because they're trying to fight bots. They've been Ticketmaster's been introducing this thing of verified fan, verified user kind of stuff. And one of the ways they've done it is you got to be connected to like a credit card, that kind of thing. And so what they've tried to do is have different tiers of tickets. And if you guys had experience with this kind of stuff, please share your thoughts on this stuff. I think it's really quite interesting. And then they'll have it on different days of when you can buy if you want to be a VIP and stuff. Another thing that they offered as well is sometimes you'll see on the internet, if you buy this T-shirt or whatever, you can jump in line and be ahead of everyone else. Now, evidently, though, which I didn't know, and I mean, when you find out what these things, it's really interesting. You can actually get fined for using bots to buy up tickets at Ticketmaster, and so essentially these ticket scalper people, they got fined. I think it was $3.7 million. Yeah, so I'm just reading it here. So it says on Friday, FTC announced, this is an old article, but FTC announced it was collectively fining 3 defendants $3.7 million for buying over 150,000 tickets for music concerts and sporting events and reselling them at higher prices. And this kind of thing is so hard to control. Now, just for example, one of the things that we've talked about on the channel before, these days, if you want to take a family, say, to a baseball game, you want to take them to Disney, you want to take them to the movie theater, you want to take them, say, to a concert, any number of events, it seems like things have gotten just so out of whack in terms of price, right? The average person in terms of percentage compared to their salary, right? It just doesn't match anymore. And this has been a problem with multiple things. I'm just talking about live events, or like I said, like a Disney or a movie theater. It's not sure a live event, but just taking your family outing. And I think there's a certain problem of this sort of secondary reseller industry that has been part of the cause of that. I say part of it because obviously there is demand. Yes, if you have a popular star like Taylor Swift, there's always going to be demand, right? And so if there's more demand than supply, then ticket prices do go up. But it is an interesting thing because as an artist, it actually doesn't benefit the artist for there to be a secondary market, because say the artist sells the tickets for, just for example, $100, and then someone buys it for 100 but then resells it for 500. Taylor Swift doesn't get that extra $400. So I think for music artists, they probably want a more fair system as well. And unless I'm wrong, but I just don't think I don't think it helps artists either to have a secondary market like this. And it's interesting too, just talking out loud with you guys. Think, what if concert tickets were like the stock market, where like Taylor Swift put out tickets and the prices would fluctuate depending on demand? I don't know if we would ever go to that kind of system. It's kind of funny thinking about that. But the one thing too that the other issue has always been who handles the upfront costs of concerts. Okay, so for example, Taylor Swift is going to organize a tour around the country. And you're going to start in LA, and you go to Seattle, then you're going to go to Minnesota, Chicago, then you go to Boston, New York, Miami, and then New Orleans. You're making the round trip. And the part of this planning, if you're going to book a stadium, because it costs money to rent a stadium, you need to have all the staff on board. You need security. You need to have the food people. You need to get the parking attendants, and then you need to clean up the place, set up the place, right? And so you got to schedule all these things in advance. And then in order to rent said stadium, you have to make sure you have enough money to do that, right? This is all managing concert, managing entertainment. For people who've never thought about this before, it is a real business, it's a legitimate business. And part of the other issue as well is that you're floating all this money because remember you're going to different cities. And you're pre-selling tickets because you need to get that money to set up and start the tour, right? And you got to also pay for Taylor Swift and all her, road show to go around and food and things like that. And so the other thing too, which is important to the pre-sales, is that you're collecting all this money, and if people are overpaying for it, she doesn't benefit at all. But there is a possibility this whole secondary industry of brokers are somehow kind of, how should I say it, maybe. They're paying off certain people to keep that system in place. There's a possibility. That was something I was thinking about when I was reading through these things. Now, the way the ticket sales worked, my understanding, it was interesting. You would sign up, and then there's looking at this stuff here. If you're a verified fan or not, you would get like a text or an email was a thing, and some people didn't get the text, some people did, some people got emails, some people didn't. And then you would get in line and you'd be like number 2,000. Some people would be like number 35,000. And it was a whole fiasco. One person was making a joke. It's like death by 2,000 cuts. And one of the things that we have the system is because you could certainly make the case that Ticketmaster is a monopoly because, well, actually it's nationwide. They joined, they merged actually, and it was under, they had to decide it in the government essentially. We'll take a look at this. Whether or not the Justice Department was looking at it, but there was the FTC as well. There's multiple things going on here because there's so much money in this, and let me show you guys this. This is really interesting because like you're looking at other situations as well. So I'll give you an example here was the book industry, and in fact, let's see, this one is the Justice Department has mounted several challenges to major mergers, right, when companies merge, convincing a judge to block Penguin Random House purchase of Simon & Schuster, right? The two, and I can't remember how many book publishers out there. There's not that many because essentially there's only so much money to go around, and this relates to concerts because if you have a blockbuster star, the star will make a deal with whatever company, and that gets the majority of the customers. So something like a book, be it a star author, or something like a concert. Whoever they sign with to schedule a tour. Now, the issue is with why Ticketmaster and Nation Live would have a monopoly is Nation Live would manage the artists, but when they merge with Ticketmaster, they're also managing sort of like the ticket sales. And think of it this way: this would be under scrutiny of the government as well. Is if, for example, Disney were to buy movie theaters, right? Because what you're like, Chris, why does it matter? Well, think of it this way: if you have a movie theater, you only have 7 screens, and the movie theater will decide which movies play in that movie theater. So if a movie theater were to only allow Disney movies in said movie theater, then the other studios could never make any money because Disney wouldn't allow them to, to show their movies in the movie theaters. The same way in a concert, let's say with Live Nation, if Live Nation signs up all the music artists and they only have certain artists, and other artists who aren't signed with Live Nation then can't sell tickets through Ticketmaster, there's no way for them to tour or anything like that. I hope you guys understand what we're saying. We're talking about a couple of different things, but it's related because this is the problem of monopoly, is when someone essentially, in this case, controls the supply of musicians and also controls the way that you distribute said tickets, is a problem. And Taylor Swift is trying to do this on her own, say for example, sell my tickets through her own website. But one is the demand is just so high, so she doesn't have an IT team to do that. That's why you put out something to a third party when your internal organization can't do it. You find another group partner with that they can do it. They specialize in this. But what I hadn't thought about so deeply, I'm just talking with you guys, is like just how much power Live Nation has, to where like if you're an indie, I mean, you have no way to really sell tickets, and I think that's a really interesting thing. And then even as a major like her, they're having problems with getting their tickets to the fans at a reasonable price, because I do think at the end of the day, I think an artist makes money, but I do think they should care about her fans, and evidently she does. So that's why this whole thing is a really interesting fiasco. The other thing too, which kind of brings to light, is if you take a look at the numbers here. We'll read this. So I want you guys to get a general sense of this. So in 2019, Live Nation had 40,000 events and sold 485 million tickets through Ticketmaster. So we're talking about really, really a lot. And then they're saying here Live Nation has about 100 managers and they have about 450 artists. So they have but they don't manage Taylor Swift, but they have quite a bit. And then Ticketmaster and Live Nation looks like they joined in 2010. And then whether or not they should have is an interesting question, because a politician, you guys know this, AOC, she actually tweeted out, here's a quote, "A daily reminder that Ticketmaster is a monopoly. Its merger with Live Nation should have never been approved, and they need to be reined in, break them up." It's fascinating because I've always hated Ticketmaster, and I didn't really hate Live Nation. Just not something that was on my register, even though, true story, I used to drive by their headquarters all the time in LA. You'll see it. And it's fascinating. The other thing is, too, which is Biden was tweeting out, this was just a few weeks ago, and people were joking with Biden that they didn't know he's a Swiftie, but here he says, "I know hidden junk fees like processing fees on concerts are a pain. They're unfair, deceptive, and add up. And then that's why last week I called administration to crack down on these fees." And I was looking at this. This relates to Ticketmaster, because I'm sure you guys know, I don't know what it is right now. I haven't looked at, recently on tickets, but I know in the past it's been like $14 to $20. It could be fees like really high on tickets, and I think it depends probably what you're buying as well. This is something that the White House is thinking about doing, of like getting rid of this kind of stuff. They're calling them junk fees. So some of these fees, like mandatory fees, that often hide the full price. So that's the kind of situation. I think the way they say it is when you see the tickets are $10. And then you go to the checkout, and at the very end there's like a $5 fee, and you're like, what? That's kind of a surprise. Surprise fees are trying to cut down. This is an interesting one. The exploitatory to exploit people on, say, ATM charges, those kind of fees. That's been something that's been an issue for quite a long time, like overdraft fees, ATM using at a different bank, these kind of things. Banks make a lot of money on that. And then fraudulent fees are just people just charging you, things that they shouldn't have charged you for. So my thoughts, I was just trying to explain this whole situation to you guys. My thoughts on all of this stuff is, when I was a kid, we didn't have this issue of like bots and stuff, but we've always had the issue of a secondary market. And I think whoever solves this problem, there's money in it, but The problem is, like, for example, I know that there's StubHub. There's a couple other ones as well that try to offer a way for people to, well, it kind of encourages the secondary market though, because it's offering a way for you to sell your tickets to someone else. And this is also an interesting reminder as well, where when people sometimes say try to buy sports tickets, I'll use the example of the Green Bay Packers. I think they have like the longest running season ticket holders in the NFL, something like that, right? And one of the things is if your family has it, you can, pass down your season ticket holders even after, say, your grandfather dies. You pass it down your grandkids, stuff like that. Is oftentimes the whole world is all about resources, and it's very difficult to get in late to things. Be it getting concert tickets late, right? So if someone has the resources to buy up, say, 100,000 tickets and then resell them, you can certainly exploit that. They've tried to put in ticket purchasing limits and try to figure out ways to enforce that, but I guess it's just really, really hard. And I think in this regard, that's what I was saying. Maybe the ticket broker people are, in cahoots with the Live Nation people or something like that. It might be a way for Live Nation to make more money. I have no proof. I'm just saying, for example, because it just seems like this whole system is corrupt, and that's why I would have no trouble with the government looking into this. Is this one of our most pressing issues in the nation? Not necessarily, but I don't think it's something that's small, because these type of things, let's say ATM fee, concert ticket fee, and these kind of things that just nickel and dime people every day of your lives. It's the kind of thing that you don't think about maybe on a daily basis, but when you add it up as a whole, it is actually quite expensive. And I think one of the issues is this reminds me too of like the loan shark industry. If you go through poor neighborhoods in America, there's all these people that have like paycheck loans and these kind of things, and they'll charge like 40% interest and ridiculous amounts, and it basically abuses certain kind of people. And you add, say, the loan shark industry, say the Ticketmaster industry, all of these kind of things are structural barriers that make it difficult for people with less resources to get ahead in life if you're just trying to live out your daily lives. So, sometimes people will say, I read on the internet, like say, oh, we don't need government at all. I think these kind of cases that you do, you want to protect consumers from predatory practices by governments. You want to try to limit the problems of monopoly, right? Once you have a monopoly on something, you can charge any price you want and exploit customers. That's why I showed you guys the definition of monopoly in the beginning of this discussion, just to get this conversation in your mind. So I'd love to hear your guys' thoughts on these things. Do you think Live Nation and Ticketmaster is a monopoly? What have been your experience with it? Does it work for you? Does it not work for you? I'd love to hear your thoughts, and thank you again for watching, and I'll catch you guys in the next video.